My wife secretly drained the savings we built together so she could fund a glamorous new lifestyle with her personal trainer. She treated me like I was nothing more than dead weight, holding her back from reaching her true potential. Instead of fighting her decision, I let her file for divorce, hired an absolutely ruthless attorney, and watched the fake influencer empire she'd built collapse right in front of a stunned judge. Here's how it all unfolded. My name is Lucas. I'm 35 years old, and about 8 months ago I believed I had the definition of an ordinary life. It was comfortable, predictable, maybe even a little boring, but I was perfectly fine with that. I worked as a logistics director for a mid-sized delivery supply company here in Denver, Colorado. My job isn't the kind of career Hollywood would ever make a movie about, but it pays well, keeps a roof over my head, and gives me the ability to provide a steady, dependable life for both me and my wife, Sabrina. Sabrina is 32, and we'd been married for 4 years. As far as I knew, we were genuinely happy together. We owned a nice 3-bedroom house in the suburbs, had a couple of dogs running around, and settled into the kind of daily routine that made life feel safe and secure. We weren't the wildly passionate honeymoon couple you see in romantic movies anymore, but we still had our Friday date nights, our Sunday morning coffee tradition, and an unspoken understanding of how our marriage worked. At least that's what I honestly believed. Then, about 8 months ago, Sabrina woke up one morning and decided she wanted to reinvent herself. At first, it seemed completely harmless. She announced that she was going to fully commit to a serious fitness journey. I encouraged her without hesitation. I've always believed that when your spouse wants to better themselves, your job is to cheer them on instead of standing in their way. She signed up for an incredibly expensive luxury gym downtown called Apex Elite. That place looked less like a fitness center and more like a 5-star resort. It had eucalyptus-scented towels, a smoothie bar, elegant lighting throughout the locker rooms, and every luxury you could imagine. Almost immediately, she hired a personal trainer named Felix. Before long, our kitchen was overflowing with meal prep containers, digital food scales, protein powders, and those awful green detox drinks that smelled absolutely terrible. I didn't complain about any of it. Honestly, I figured it was just another temporary obsession, kind of like the 6 months she spent trying to become a freelance graphic designer. To show that I supported her, I quietly started taking on more responsibilities around the house. I handled the grocery shopping, cooked my own meals so she wouldn't have to think about my diet, did the laundry, and kept the house spotless so she could spend her evenings at the gym without feeling guilty or overwhelmed. I truly believed I was being the supportive husband she needed. But as the weeks slowly turned into months, something inside Sabrina began to change in a much deeper way. It wasn't only her body that transformed. The more weight she lost, the more her ego seemed to grow until it became almost unrecognizable. She slowly turned into someone who seemed completely consumed by her own image. She could spend hours sitting in front of the bedroom mirror, adjusting her expensive new workout clothes, while trying to capture the perfect angle for another Instagram progress photo. At some point, she stopped exercising because it made her feel healthy. Instead, she started performing for an audience. I can still remember the exact moment I realized things had gotten completely out of control. It was a rainy Friday evening, and I'd ordered dinner from our favorite Thai restaurant. I suggested we curl up on the couch together and watch a movie like we always used to. Sabrina walked into the living room wearing yet another designer workout outfit and smiled at me. She actually smiled before saying, "Lucas, I don't have time to sit around watching TV anymore." Her voice was completely flat and emotionless. "I have goals I'm trying to reach." I just stared at her, totally confused. Goals? She wasn't training for the Olympics. She was doing squats and drinking kale smoothies. Still, I kept my mouth shut, shrugged it off, and ate my dinner alone while she spent the next 2 hours live streaming on Instagram from our guest bedroom. Then came the morning that completely turned my life upside down. I was sitting at the kitchen island, barely awake, drinking a cup of black coffee before leaving for work. Sabrina stood nearby blending her usual spinach smoothie with flaxseed oil. She was already dressed in workout clothes, completely focused on her phone. Without warning, and without even looking up from the screen, she casually said, "I deserve more out of life." I blinked a couple of times, still trying to wake up, before asking, "More? Like what?" She finally finished posting whatever she was doing, lowered her phone, and looked directly at me. The expression on her face was so cold that it sent chills down my spine. "This marriage is holding me back, Lucas. I'm filing for divorce." I actually laughed for a second because I honestly thought she was making some strange joke. Very funny, sa. But she never smiled. Her face stayed completely expressionless. I'm serious. She slowly waved her hand around our beautiful kitchen before pointing directly at me. I've outgrown all of this. I've outgrown you. You wouldn't understand. I'm operating on a higher frequency now, and you've stayed exactly where you've always been. I just sat there, frozen. This was the woman I'd promised to spend the rest of my life with. We'd built a home together, shared dreams together, and now she was throwing me away as casually as someone tossing an old pair of shoes into the trash. The shock quickly turned into anger that I could barely contain. What are you even talking about? What do you mean you've outgrown me? Outgrown what? We have a great life. She sighed dramatically and looked at me like I was a child who simply couldn't keep up. Lucas, I've done a lot of self-discovery. I'm becoming the best version of myself. Honestly, this average life doesn't match my potential anymore. I want more than this suburban house, this boring routine, and this version of you. She didn't even try to soften the words. In her mind, I had become nothing more than an anchor dragging down the incredible future she imagined for herself. She picked up her $300 gym bag, turned around without another word, and walked out the front door without even saying goodbye. I stayed there alone in the silent kitchen, staring at the half-finished green smoothie she'd abandoned on the counter. It honestly felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared. The weeks that followed were a living nightmare. The problems in our marriage weren't just small cracks anymore. They'd shattered the entire foundation. Sabrina was practically gone. The only time she spoke to me was to discuss practical things like dividing furniture or paperwork related to the divorce. Most nights she didn't come home until after midnight, claiming she was networking with fitness professionals or attending late-night training sessions. Her phone was glued to her hand every waking minute, and her Instagram account absolutely exploded. She posted endless selfies with captions about embracing a new chapter, letting go of dead weight, and finally living her best life. Every single post felt like it was aimed directly at me. While she proudly broadcasted her so-called freedom to the world, I quietly drowned in confusion, heartbreak, and grief. Then one evening, while scrolling through social media, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. She had gone through her entire Instagram profile and systematically deleted every single photo that included the two of us. The wedding pictures were gone. Every anniversary photo had vanished. Even those candid shots of us walking the dogs had been deleted. It was like she was trying to erase me from her past, rewriting our entire history so it looked like I had never been part of her life. Meanwhile, her comment section was overflowing with strangers praising her. "You're glowing, Queen. You're such an inspiration." Reading those comments honestly made me sick. None of those people knew the real Sabrina. They had no idea about the damage she'd left behind while chasing her selfish fantasy of becoming someone important. The final straw came a few nights later. I was getting ready for work, kneeling in the hallway to tie my shoes, when I overheard Sabrina talking on the phone in the living room. She was using that overly sweet, high-pitched voice she only brought out when she was flirting or trying to manipulate someone. "I just feel so free now," she whispered into the phone. "I'm finally taking my power back." A second later she laughed. "Oh my God, I know. He doesn't even get it. He's completely stuck in the past. It's honestly pathetic." My blood practically froze. She hadn't just walked away from our marriage. She was making fun of me behind my back for someone else's entertainment. In her mind, she had become the star of her own movie, and I was just an insignificant character she couldn't wait to write out of the script. But if Sabrina thought I was going to curl up, cry, and hand over everything we'd built together, she had badly underestimated me. I'm not naturally confrontational, but if someone backs me into a corner and insults my intelligence, I know exactly how to fight back. And without realizing it, she handed me the ammunition. A few days later, I stopped for lunch at a cafe near my office. I was sitting by myself in the corner answering a few emails when I overheard two college-aged guys at the next table. They were talking loudly about some local fitness influencer they'd found online. I barely paid attention until one of them clearly said Sabrina's full name. My stomach instantly dropped. I stayed completely still and listened. "Dude, she's absolutely gorgeous." One of them laughed. "She keeps teasing that premium content link in her bio. I swear she's about to launch an OnlyFans." "No way. Let me see," his friend replied. I leaned just enough to catch a glimpse of the phone screen. It was Sabrina, my wife. She was posing in a tiny bikini in front of a mirror that I immediately recognized from her gym. The caption read, "Want to see the workouts I don't post here? Click the link for my exclusive VIP content." Felt like someone had punched me right in the throat. This wasn't just about fitness anymore. She was using her so-called freedom to reinvent herself as an online fantasy for lonely men willing to pay for attention. I couldn't even finish my lunch. I left the food sitting on the table, walked straight to my car, and drove home with a burning knot in my chest. When I walked through the front door, Sabrina was stretched out on the living room couch, lazily scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. "Sabrina," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "What the hell is this?" She barely looked up. "It's my body, Lucas. My choice. Honestly, it's none of your business." "None of my business?" I snapped, and every bit of patience I'd been holding on to disappeared. "We're still legally married, and you're advertising yourself to strangers online while I'm trying to figure out what's left of our life together. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" She rolled her eyes so dramatically I thought they might stay there. "Oh, grow up, Lucas. You're such a dinosaur." "I'm not selling myself. It's called content creation. Plenty of confident women do it. Besides, it makes good money, and you're not exactly going to be paying my bills forever." That was the exact moment the last piece of love I had for her disappeared. The woman sitting on my couch wasn't the person I'd married anymore. She had become an empty shell that fed on compliments, followers, and money. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't sorry. She was proud of herself. She genuinely believed she couldn't be touched. What Sabrina didn't realize was that reality was about to hit her much harder than she ever expected. While she was busy posting selfies and pretending to be a fitness celebrity, I hired an attorney. His name was Matthias, and the man was absolutely relentless. I told him everything. He got access to our financial records, our shared accounts, her public social media pages, anything that could matter. Then Matthias started digging. And what he uncovered became the beginning of the end for Sabrina's perfect fantasy. It turned out her exciting new life wasn't a solo journey at all. She'd found someone else. And I bet you can already guess who it was. Hey, Reddit. Lucas here with another update. Grab some popcorn because my future ex-wife's little drama has officially turned into a full-blown disaster. If you read my last post, you already know Sabrina decided she was somehow too good for our marriage, demanded a divorce, and started acting like she was a world-famous influencer. But now let's talk about the real spark that lit this entire fire. Her personal trainer, Felix. It's such an old cliché that you'd think nobody could actually fall for it anymore. Unfortunately, Sabrina proved otherwise. The second Matthias heard Felix's name, everything started falling into place. Felix was exactly the kind of guy you'd expect to see selling overpriced supplements through some pyramid scheme. He always carried himself with that smug confidence, wore enough hair gel to survive a hurricane, and flashed the kind of smile that practically screamed, "I'll empty your wallet while telling you your energy is amazing." Sabrina didn't even bother hiding what was happening anymore. As soon as the divorce became official news, she stopped pretending. She'd come home from the gym smelling like expensive men's cologne with that satisfied little grin on her face. "Felix says my transformation is completely unprecedented," she'd proudly announce while standing in the kitchen. "Sure, Sabrina. I'm sure Felix tells every one of his clients their special right before convincing them to spend even more money." Eventually, she stopped pretending he was only her trainer. His name came up constantly. "Felix is taking me to this exclusive rooftop bar. Felix thinks we should invest in a meal prep startup." Every sentence started with Felix. Meanwhile, I could only stand there wondering, who exactly is we? Before long, the rumors spread through our entire circle of friends. People started texting me to say they'd seen Sabrina and Felix all over Denver. They were holding hands, kissing in upscale restaurants, and posing for photos like they were the city's newest influencer power couple. Then one evening Sabrina actually came home, leaned against the doorway, and casually announced it. "Just so we're clear, Felix and I are officially dating now. I think it's time you accepted that and moved on." "Oh, I accepted it weeks ago," I answered without even looking away from my laptop. "I accepted that you're living out one giant cliché." She slammed the door so hard the picture frame hanging nearby rattled against the wall. But this is where everything became truly interesting. Matthias wasn't satisfied with only investigating our finances. He decided to investigate Felix too. And what he found was unbelievable. Felix wasn't just another personal trainer. He had a reputation. According to Matthias, he'd spent years making a habit of chasing married women. His routine was simple. Find an emotionally vulnerable wife, convince her she deserved more, and then encourage her to spend money chasing the fantasy he sold. That's when Matthias uncovered something that made everything crystal clear. There was an unexplained $9,000 missing from our shared savings account. Matthias eventually figured out exactly where the missing money had gone. Sabrina had blown it on luxury spa getaways, expensive designer workout clothes, a $3,600 camera so she could create influencer content, and countless dinners at upscale steakhouses where the bills regularly topped $250. Those receipts told the whole story. Every one of them listed 2 cocktails, 2 entrees, and a shared dessert. She hadn't been eating alone. She'd been taking Felix out while spending money from our joint savings. Meanwhile, I was at home eating leftover chicken and rice, completely unaware that the money we'd worked so hard to save was financing her new fantasy life. Matthias looked at the receipts, shook his head, and simply said, "She really thought nobody would ever notice this." Sabrina completely fell apart. She burst into tears, ran into the guest bedroom, and slammed the door behind her. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully. Unfortunately, Sabrina still wasn't ready to accept reality. Instead, she doubled down. Her attorney filed a request asking the court to award her emotional damages. According to the filing, I had failed to support her fitness journey emotionally, which supposedly caused so much psychological stress that she turned to Felix for comfort. Yes, she actually tried to argue that her affair was somehow my fault, and expected the court to reward her with money for it. When Matthias read the paperwork, he couldn't stop laughing. "Oh, she wants to make emotional suffering part of this case?" He smiled. "Perfect. Let's take that argument straight into court." Update number 2. Hey, Reddit. Lucas here again. This is the final chapter. A lot of you have followed this unbelievable story from the beginning, and I'm happy to report that karma didn't just knock on Sabrina's front door, kicked the entire thing off its hinges. The day of the final hearing finally arrived. The courtroom was filled with tension. Sabrina walked in looking nothing like the confident fitness queen she'd spent months pretending to be online. She looked exhausted, small, defeated. Her hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and she was wearing a plain gray suit that looked a size too big for her. One person was noticeably absent. Felix. He was nowhere to be found. 2 weeks earlier, he'd blocked her on every social media platform and completely disappeared the moment he realized there wasn't going to be a huge financial payout waiting for her. He abandoned ship without looking back. I sat beside Matthias feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. I'd endured months of manipulation, financial betrayal, and public humiliation. Now it was finally time for the truth to come out. Sabrina's attorney opened by repeating the same ridiculous argument about emotional damages. He painted me as an uncaring husband who mocked Sabrina's ambitions, refused to support her dreams, and emotionally pushed her into another man's arms. According to him, Sabrina was the victim. Then Matthias stood. He buttoned his suit jacket, walked calmly to the front of the courtroom, and spoke with the confidence of someone who already knew exactly how this case would end. "Your Honor," he began. "Opposing counsel claims my client failed to support his wife. We'd like to present evidence showing the exact opposite." He handed the judge a thick stack of documents. They contained months of text messages between Sabrina and me. In these conversations, Matthias continued, "You'll see, Mr. Hartman offering to cook meals for his wife, adjusting his work schedule around her gym sessions, taking over household responsibilities, and willingly paying for her luxury gym membership without complaint." He paused. "Does that sound like a husband who refused to support his spouse?" Sabrina's attorney objected immediately. The judge overruled him without hesitation and continued reading. Matthias waited patiently before speaking again. "Now let's discuss the emotional suffering Mrs. Hartman claims she experienced." He placed another binder before the judge. "This contains text messages, social media posts, and conversations Mrs. Hartman voluntarily shared with friends." Then Matthias began reading Sabrina's own words aloud. "Lucas is such dead weight. I can't wait to get rid of him and move on." Another message followed. "Felix makes Lucas look pathetic." Then another. "I'll keep dragging Lucas along until I lock down enough money for my new life." Hearing those words spoken aloud in the silence of a courtroom was painful. But watching Sabrina sink lower and lower into her chair, as embarrassment spread across her face, almost made the pain worthwhile. Matthias wasn't finished. Not even close. "Your Honor," he continued, "the opposing side has argued Mrs. Hartman deserves a larger share of the marital assets because she requires financial support to maintain her current lifestyle." He smiled slightly. "Fortunately, Mrs. Hartman also kept excellent digital records. Sabrina's expression instantly changed. She'd completely forgotten about the notes automatically syncing through her iCloud account. Matthias handed printed copies to the judge. These notes, he explained, were written 4 months before she filed for divorce. They outline, step by step, a detailed plan. The judge adjusted his glasses and began reading. The color drained from Sabrina's face. She started trembling. Even her attorney stared silently at the table, looking like he wished he could disappear. The judge didn't need much time to reach a decision. When he finally spoke, every word landed with incredible force. "Mrs. Hartman," he said firmly, "in over 20 years on this bench, I have rarely encountered such a deliberate and calculated attempt to manipulate both a spouse and this court." He looked directly at her. "Your claims of emotional abuse are completely contradicted by your own written statements." He continued reading from the case file. "Your financial conduct throughout the final months of this marriage was reckless, deceptive, and intentionally harmful." Then came the ruling. The marital residence, which was purchased primarily using Mr. Hartman's premarital assets and maintained almost entirely through his income, shall remain his sole property. You are awarded no ownership interest in that home. Sabrina lowered her head. The judge continued. You also withdrew approximately $28,000 from joint accounts to finance an extramarital relationship and a luxury lifestyle. You are therefore ordered to reimburse Mr. Hartman $29,500, including the legal expenses required to uncover this misuse of marital funds. Your request for spousal support is denied." He raised the gavel. "This matter is concluded." The sound echoed through the courtroom. Just like that. It was over. I'd won. I let out a long breath that felt like I'd been holding it for the last 8 months. Matthias smiled, patted me on the shoulder, and looked just as satisfied as I felt. As we gathered our papers, I glanced over at Sabrina. She was completely shattered. She sat there crying into her hands while her attorney angrily packed his briefcase, clearly frustrated that she had hidden so much evidence from him. When I stepped outside into the bright Denver sunshine, it honestly felt like hundreds of pounds had been lifted off my shoulders. The aftermath came quickly. The court ordered Sabrina to move out of my house within 72 hours. Just to be safe, I hired a private security guard to stay at the property while she packed her belongings. After everything that had happened, I wasn't willing to risk her damaging the house in one last act of revenge. Watching Sabrina load her expensive designer luggage into the trunk of a beat-up Honda Civic she'd borrowed from her sister felt strangely satisfying. Without my income, without the massive divorce settlement she'd expected, and now carrying a $29,500 judgment against her, the glamorous influencer lifestyle she'd been chasing fell apart almost overnight. She ended up moving into a tiny apartment where she had to share the place with 2 roommates. For a few weeks, she tried to keep the illusion alive on Instagram by recycling old photos and pretending everything was still perfect. Eventually, reality caught up with her. She stopped posting altogether. As for Felix, he quickly moved on to a 22-year-old college student whose parents happened to be extremely wealthy. Apparently, he was running exactly the same playbook all over again. Honestly, I feel sorry for that young woman. But that's no longer my problem. Not my circus. Not my monkeys. The final chapter of this whole story happened just last week. It was a rainy Tuesday evening. I was relaxing in my living room, watching a movie and enjoying something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Peace. The doorbell rang. When I opened the front door, Sabrina was standing there. She looked nothing like the woman who had walked out of my life months earlier. Her makeup was gone. Her hair was messy. She wore an oversized sweatshirt, and she was shivering in the cold rain. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "Lucas," she whispered with a trembling voice. "Can I come inside for just a minute?" I stayed exactly where I was, blocking the doorway. "No, Sabrina. What do you want?" She immediately broke down. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. Felix used me. He manipulated me into believing I needed to leave you. He got inside my head." She wiped away her tears. "Lucas, I've lost everything. I don't have any money. My friends don't even want to talk to me anymore. I'm completely alone." She looked up at me. "Now I realize you were the best thing that ever happened to me. Please. I'm begging you. Can we try counseling? Can we start over?" I looked at the woman standing on my porch. This was the same person who had laughed at me, called me dead weight, spent our savings helping another man enjoy expensive dinners. and carefully planned my financial destruction before she ever asked for a divorce. As I looked at her, I realized something. I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no resentment, just complete indifference. "Sabrina," I said calmly, "Felix didn't make you into this person. He didn't manipulate you into becoming selfish. He simply gave you permission to be the person you already wanted to be." I paused. "You're not standing here because you love me. You're standing here because your plan failed. You lost your money. You lost your lifestyle. And now you have nowhere else to go." She reached toward me, trying to grab my hand. "Please, Lucas." I stepped backward before she could touch me. "You told me you'd outgrown me. You said you were vibrating on a higher frequency." I looked her in the eyes. "So go vibrate somewhere else. And don't ever come back to this house. If you do, I'll call the police." Then I quietly closed the front door. I shut the curtains, walked back into my living room, picked up the remote, and pressed play on my movie. That was the last time I ever saw Sabrina. Since then, life has slowly returned to normal. I even joined a gym. Not some luxury fitness club filled with influencers. Just a simple, affordable neighborhood gym a few blocks away. I've reconnected with old friends. I've rebuilt my routine. Most importantly, I've gotten my peace back. Sometimes the trash doesn't need anyone to take it out. Sometimes it sets itself on fire right at the end of the driveway. Thanks for reading, Reddit. Top comments. User 1, 15,000 upvotes. The fact that she showed up at your front door in the pouring rain like she was the main character in a Sebastian Fitzek movie is absolutely unbelievable. She honestly thought she could hit the reset button after the judge legally dropped a nuclear bomb on her entire plan. And Matthias? That man deserves a premium bottle of scotch. User 2, 11,000 upvotes. I'm a family law attorney, and let me tell you something. Clients leaving detailed written plans in synchronized Apple Notes is basically every divorce lawyer's dream. Most cheaters are careless. Sabrina somehow managed to write a complete instruction manual explaining exactly how she intended to manipulate her husband. Then she accidentally handed it to the court. Watching the judge deny spousal support and order her to repay $29,500 was one of the most satisfying legal outcomes I've ever read about. User 3, 8,900 upvotes. Felix may have been a manipulative jerk, but Sabrina wasn't an innocent victim. She willingly went along with everything because she loved the attention and the ego boost. Notice how she only decided Felix had manipulated her after he dumped her for a younger woman with wealthy parents. She wasn't sorry for hurting you. She was sorry that she lost the money, the lifestyle, and ended up sharing an apartment with roommates. Good for you for refusing to take her back.